Alright everyone, here we go again with some more Reincarnation. I want to thank you all for the love and support you keep giving this series. It really means a lot, guys, and I know you're excited for more, and here we go, because we're getting more connections between Jacopo and Morgana, and it's getting deeper, and we're finally getting into the heart of the matter, or at least we're about to. So, I'm curious as to where it's going to go, and how it all plays out. So, with that said, guys, let's keep at it, and keep it rolling. Alright guys, and we are back. Fields of wheat stretching out like an ocean. Talk about my unseen father. Had almost the same thing come up this afternoon. Could it be a coincidence? In the dream, there was someone standing before me, a silhouette of a man, his face imperceptible. But whoever it was, they meant a lot to me. If only I could see them again. Morgana spent the following day at my apartment as well. It was a sunny Sunday and we started it with a walk. Took a brief detour to the cafe Maria worked at. Did some light shopping. Then went home and watched a movie. Concerned she might get bored doing all the same things again, after the movie we played video games. I wasn't much of a gamer myself though. I mostly used the console to watch movies. So I bought the digital version of some racing game and we had at it. We were both absolutely terrible, which helped keep things fun and not overly competitive. In our final race, Morgana's car spun out, and she ended up driving backwards through the course, causing me to laugh so hard I dropped my controller. After that, she refused to play with me anymore, or even talk to me for a good while. Monday morning, I had to go to work, and it was the first time in my life that I had ever felt like an obligation, a burden. Morgana and I spent a good 90% of our time arguing about something or other. But on some level, it seemed I'd actually come to enjoy those conversations. And having to leave that behind for work only made me realize I wasn't working because I enjoyed it, but because I convinced myself it was all I could do. It was a way to ensure no one would be able to claim I hadn't accomplished anything when I returned to Sicily. So no one could look down on me. So no one could challenge me. I'd always believed that money and power were all one needed to get whatever they wanted in life. And I'd forfeited any semblance of a personal life to achieve that. Even now, I wasn't entirely convinced that belief was wrong either. What things did modern society place that most value in, after all? Personal assets and social standing. The more time I spent with Morgana, the more these pillars of my life wavered. She didn't care for fancy restaurants and was more than happy to eat some cheap meal that only took 10 minutes to throw together. She found beauty in the ordinary, not just things designed to appear beautiful. Filtered through her eyes, the world seemed gentler than the one I knew. Which was especially curious as she herself was anything but gentle, mercilessly sharp-tongued and aggressively aloof. Yet because of her, the wind on my cheeks felt warmer now. It put my heart at ease in a way that I couldn't help but think I felt this way before, long, long ago. That it wasn't arbitrary. That there was an explanation for the peace she provided me. I stopped doing regular overtime at work. Or before I had written everyone off as unreliable and useless, deciding it would be best to simply handle everything myself, I started delegating some of that work back to my subordinates. Everyone was shocked at the sudden change in my demeanor, and many were upset at the reduced efficiency that resulted from it. But it was their work to begin with, so they had no grounds to complain. People were going to be talking about me behind my back, that much was inevitable when their workload increased. Even more so considering I was already disliked for how often I yelled at and chewed people out. But I didn't have time to bother myself with other people's opinions. Before, I might have been worried it would affect my prospects of a promotion, but now I wasn't especially concerned. I was doing what I needed to do and not a single thing more. My priority now was getting home as quickly as possible. You know, I like the slight comparisons between his work now and how he was a lord prior. Like, you can see like the small comparisons here and there about how the people still didn't like him, even though he was working hard for himself and for the company. So I could teach Morgana about the world. And then, before I realized it, 2 weeks had passed since I'd taken her in on that rainy night. Still, she was staying at my apartment. Sometimes I'd ask her with a sigh, "When are you planning to go home already?" To which she'd respond, puffing her cheeks, "You're free to kick me out whenever you please." Except I couldn't, which is why we were in this situation in the first place. Did she challenge me knowing I wouldn't call her bluff? That I didn't actually want to throw her out anymore? Over the past couple of weeks, I bought more books and movies than I could count so she could keep herself occupied while I was at work. And shocking even myself, I'd given her a spare key as well. Something was clearly loose in my head. Doing things for her made me feel good though. And as insane as I rationally knew I was, I couldn't fight how it made me feel. Over and over and over again, I argued with myself. But never once did good sense win out. I must confess, I had grown quite fond of this new life. It was a Thursday, a little over 2 weeks since I met Morgana. The first day, all I managed to do was force an umbrella onto her. Never could I have imagined from that encounter that we'd effectively be living together soon after. Not enough time had passed to really reminisce about how far we'd come, but nevertheless, the change was undeniable.
くそ、もう8時半だ。やはり連日定時で上がるのは厳しいな。8時半で遅くなったか。ずいぶんな変化だな、まったく。あいつは先に飯を食っているだろうか。まさか待っていたりはしないだろうな。おい、帰ったぞ。モルガーナ。おい、モルガーナ。いないのか。
I couldn't find her anywhere in the apartment. She wasn't asleep and she wasn't in the shower either. She was just gone. I said the last 2 weeks had been all a dream. We weren't family nor were we really living together, but I'd gotten so used to having someone there to snark at me when I got home that it felt off to be greeted by silence. My first thought was that something had happened to her. She was hurt or in danger. But the apartment was just how I'd left it. The door was still locked, and there was no sign of anyone breaking in. She had left of her own volition, locking the door behind her. Could she have gotten into trouble somewhere else then?
くそ、こういう時に連絡する手段がない。やはり携帯の一つや二つ持たせておくべきだったのだ。外に探しに行くか、それとも警察に。
Slow down. Why was I acting like she needed to be here when I got back? After how many times I told her to get out? I never meant it as anything more than banter, but how was she supposed to know my intentions? Wouldn't it have made more sense for her to have just gone home, as opposed to something actually happening to her? That I was the only one enjoying our time together and she had finally gotten tired of me for good? I mean, thinking back, she clearly always seemed annoyed. Constantly complaining, never smiling. Telling me who even knows how many times I should burn in hell. What if I'd misread her and she wasn't joking, and every day here was piling on more and more stress? As much as I continued to insist she was a child, it wasn't like she was She was primary school or middle school age. She was old enough to think and make decisions for herself. In fact, judging from the short time we've been together, she was very mature for her age. So she wasn't going to be completely helpless if something did happen to her.
つまりはそういうことか。もう見切りをつけたのだ。そうか。せめて一言くらい残していけばいいのに。そういう間柄でもなかったということだ。
I wasn't so angry as I felt bummed. I tossed the movie I bought over lunch onto the counter, then collapsed into the couch. She'd always sat right here in this spot. She was small, barely took up any space, but the hole left in her absence felt larger than life. The room was uncomfortably quiet now, and it felt like the temperature had dropped several degrees as well.
もともとこれが正しい状況だったではないか。何を気落ちしているのだ、バカめ。飯でも作るか。
I stood motionless in the kitchen, unable to scrounge together the motivation to make anything. You know, how much you want to bet she just stepped out? Like, she probably did some shopping of her own and is coming back home. She didn't really leave, you know? I bet you. It would be funny if that's really the case. I wasn't cooking for anyone else, so it didn't have to be anything fancy. Just warm up a can of spaghetti sauce and toss it over some pasta. Easy.
今、扉の開いた音がしたか。
あら、もう帰っていたんですね。一人分だけ先に作るつもりですか。
I was right! I called it! She stood before me with a grocery bag in her hands. Oh, I double called it! Oh, oh my gosh, that's so funny. Okay, that's so cool. I stood before her, utterly stupefied. She frowned that oh-so familiar frown. She didn't have to say a word, and I could still hear her mocking me clear as day. I felt like all the wind had been sucked out of me, and with it the ability to lie.
いや、帰ったのだとばかり思っていた。
帰ったじゃないですか、今。
Alright guys, I don't know about you, but I just felt that. That hit home. Wow. That hit me in the feels. We weren't on the same page. She seemed to think that by home I meant... It finally hit her. That without even missing a beat, she called my apartment her home.
Na 何笑っているの。いきなりそんな楽しそうに。言い間違えただけですからね。
分かっている。分かっているさ。
もうまだ笑っているし、変な人なんだから。
ああ、そうだな。すっかりおかしなやつになっちまったみたいだよ、僕は。
僕？
God damn it. Now it was my turn for a slip of the tongue. I hadn't talked like that in years.
あ、いや、今のは違うんだ。気にするな。というか、気にしないでくれ。
その方がいいんじゃない？というより、その方が絶対いいですよ。なんで作ろうっているのか知りませんけれど。私の前では そういう話し方にして。
ま、気が向いたらな。
She smiled, a rare occurrence, but I couldn't bring myself to look her in the eyes. I absolutely wanted to take in every second of it, though. God, I was acting like a damn child, but it was getting to be impossible to deny what was going on. I was a 26-year-old man and she a good decade younger. It was wrong on so many levels to have these feelings about her. But I was entranced with Morgana.
ベッドで寝てもいいですよ。
I was getting ready to head to the living room for bed when Morgana interrupted me. Did this girl understand the meaning of her words? She was telling me I could sleep in the same bed as her.
ずっとソファーで寝ていたら疲れるでしょう。それに、私にそういう気は起きないんですよね。
そういう気が起きる起きないの話じゃない。同じベッドで寝るのは良くないだろう。いろいろとまずい。
理屈になってないと思います。
理屈になってなくてもまずいものはまずいのだ。
私としては、あなたが疲れた顔で出勤する方がまずいと思います。やっぱり寝起きが少し辛そうでしたから。
なんだ君、意外と私のことを見ているな。だったら君がソファーで寝ればいいだろ
う。嫌です。私ベッド派なんで。
なんだそれは。
まあソファーで寝たいと堅くなにおっしゃるのならそれでいいと思います。じゃあおやすみなさい。
So they finally decided to share a bed, huh? Somehow, Morgana managed to wear me down, and now we were both in bed. The same bed. I was pretty sure I'd rest better on the couch than here, both physically and mentally. To start with, being able to sense her presence behind me was incredibly distracting, and then there was the worry that I might accidentally roll over and crush her. But worst of all was her body heat. I wasn't accustomed to being able to feel anyone so close.
ねえ、絶対にこっちを振り向かないでくださいね。向き合って眠るのなんて真っ平だから。
ベッドを使っていいと言ったのは君だろうに。まったく。分かった。そっちは向かない。だからおとなしく寝ろ。
She was still a corpse behind me, but I could feel tension in the air nonetheless. What was she getting worked up about? Jeez. The longer the silence continued, the more uncomfortable it grew. I sighed, letting it hang in the air before breaking it with a hey. She lurched slightly at the sound of my voice. Then after another brief pause, she responded with a, what?
眠れないようなら少し話でもしないかと思ってな。
別に構いませんけれど。何の話をするつもりなんですか？
そうだな。いい加減聞かせてくれないか。どうして家出をしているのかを。
そんなに気になるの？
当たり前だろ。
私にああだこうだと助言をしたいから。
そういや、2週間前に出かけた時、カフェでそんなことを言ったな。あの時は本音は言えなかった。今なら、この距離ならもう少し素直になれる気がする。君にも もう少し優しくできるような気がする。君のことが気になるからだ。ただ知りたいだけで、こっちの意見を押し付けたいわけじゃない。
I think this is the most honest I've ever seen Jacopo so far, especially with Morgana.
知りたいと思うのはおかしなことか。
でもよくある話よ。面白くもない。
面白さなんてかけらも求めていない。
ねえ、あなたは神を信じていますか？
神？どうして突然神の話が出てくるんだ。それに聞きたいのは君の話であって。
いいから答えて。
正直なところ信じておらんな。だが別に私が特別に不敬であるという話ではないだろう。今の時代で心から神を信じているのはごく一部だ。先進国の人間はほとんど信じちゃいない。宗教は冠婚葬祭の時に必要になるだけだ。
そうね、ほとんどの人がそうだわ。でも私は信じています。大いなる父の存在を、私を見守る神の存在を、そして神がもたらす奇跡の力と、小さな人間では抗いようのない運命の流れを。神を愛する心は、かつてはそれこそが正しく、逆に信仰心のないものは罰せられ、火にあぶられました。でも今は逆ね。神を心から信じていると古臭い人間だと思われるわ。下手をすれば偏った思考を持つおかしな人間だと思われることもある。
She was right. These days, people weren't punished for being faithless or believing in other gods, as would have happened in ancient times. And for that, the world was a more peaceful and accepting place now. But these societal rules for acceptance had not gone away, merely transformed over the centuries. While you wouldn't be burnt at the stake anymore, those with beliefs deemed unacceptable were still made into outcasts. Something I was guilty of doing as well. I frequently found myself frustrated at people who didn't see the world the same as me. I was close-minded and unable to adapt to different ideas. Instead, I threw them to the curb, making no attempt to reconcile or understand, refusing to examine my own beliefs. When we first met, I probably would have laughed in her face if she had told me she believed in God. The Heavenly Father, His divine plan, fantasy nonsense, all of it. I wouldn't have even given her the time of day.
ただ、私よりも母の方が神を信じている。いいえ、よりどころにしているんです。顔も知らない実の父の話はしたでしょ。両親が離婚してから母は随分と荒れていたようなんです。あの人が通い詰めたのは地元の教会で、私も幼い頃から同行していました。母にとって教会はとても身近な存在で、孤独を癒す場であり、救いの場でした。そして私にとっても身近な存在で、倫理を習う場であり、懺悔の場でした。
懺悔？その頃はまだ子供だったんだろう。一体何に対しての懺悔だ。そんなもの必要ないだろ
いいえ、私には魂にこびりついた業があるのです。
Excuse me, what?
私の魂は神の裁きを受けないままこの世に降り立ってしまったがために、前世の汚れを持ったままなんです。だから私は前世の過ちをこの世界で償い続けなければならない。
なんだそれは。それをまさか神父が言ったとでも言うのか。いいかモルガーナ、君が何を信じようが自由だ。今時珍しいくらいの敬虔な信者であろうとも文句は言わん。だがそればかりは否定させてもらうぞ。前世の過ちを現世で償うなど馬鹿げている。前世そのものがオカルトだというのに、そんなものに生き方を縛られるつもりか。
確かに私も最初はそう思っていたんです。自分の知らない、あるかもわからない前世の過ちを償うなんて。でも母も神父もこう言うのです。私の体に残る醜いただれこそが魂に刻まれた業の証拠であると。病院に行ってもただれの正体はわからないままでした。どの医者も原因がわからないというのです。だからこれは病気ではなく、意図的に神が残したものであると思ったんです。魂の汚れを忘れないようにする呪いとして。
そんなバカな話があってたまるか。君は母親と神父に騙されているだけだ。
そうね、きっとそう思えたでしょうね。私の心に自分の知らない記憶さえなければ。
なんだって。自分の知らない記憶。
That golden field of wheat immediately popped into my mind. I had memories that didn't belong to me too. In them, a hazy silhouette of a girl.
その記憶の中で私は気の遠くなるような長い時間人を呪い続けるんです。本当は巻き込んではいけない善良な人すら陥れて憎しみの言葉を吐き続けている。私がいるのは色彩を失った死の気配が漂う館で、そこに3人の魂を閉じ込めるんです。
Wait, is she trying to say she regained all her memories?
いいえ、3人だけじゃない。そのゆかりの者たちの魂も間接的に縛り付けて。彼妄言だと思っているでしょう。別に構いませんよ。自覚はありますから。魂も呪いも死の館もどれも笑い話に聞こえるくらいおかしなことですからね。
It was childish and silly. It was the kind of fantasy nonsense that had no place outside fiction. But I couldn't carry the words from my mind to my mouth. A chill ran down my spine, like a bony finger sliding down the skin, until it stopped at my heart. It was as if it was trying to say Morgana was talking about me. My mind was just playing tricks. There wasn't any evidence, but the thought wouldn't leave me.
どうしたんですか？もしかして眠った？
Alright guys, I'm gonna end the video here for today. Thank you all for watching. It looks like we're hitting like the finale of this story, I believe, because right now Morgana's confessing to having the memories of the main game, and oh boy, I'm like really curious to how this is gonna go over, because this could make or break the whole Jacopo Morgana relationship, because their relationship wasn't strong to begin with. Both main game and it was building somewhere in a Requiem for Innocence for obvious reasons, but then it got shattered because of a lot of undue circumstances. And here we are again, and this is like a second chance for them. And depending on how this conversation goes, it could go wrong or it could go right. And I'm hoping, things go smoothly for them. Like I'm looking forward to the next part, basically, guys, because this is heavy. So if anything else, guys, thank you all for watching. Until the next one.